Hey everybody, I'm gonna do another one of those video responses that I like to do on the channel, kind of talking head response to another YouTuber. So it's gonna be stream of consciousness. I thought about the 4 games I wanted to talk about, but I didn't really write any notes. I just kind of wanted to sit down and I don't know, just record a video. I think they're really fun. Hopefully it's not too random. Without further ado, this is a video response to Happy Console Gamer. I haven't seen anybody else do this type of video, so if anyone has, you can give them a shout out in the comments. It's, what is your video game bucket list? So if you're unfamiliar with the bucket list, it's basically stuff you want to do before you die. And so when you equate that to video games, it's what video games do you want to beat before you die? Now I tried to do kind of a one per genre kind of thing. So if I like this video or if there's good reception, maybe I'll do like RPGs I want to do, or platformers I want to do, or something like that, of games I would like to beat before I croak. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with Zelda. Now this, I went back and forth on which one I wanted to pick. When I was initially watching his video, I thought Link to the Past. For sure, Link to the Past, because I love Link to the Past. Link to the Past would be in that running of games that I haven't beat that I just absolutely love. Jessica and I have started a Jessica Plays of Link to the Past, and then we didn't have internet and we had to move, and we haven't got back to it. But it's high on our list of games to get back to. But in my experience, my brother and I had this game when we were kids. He played it a lot more than I did. He might have even beat it when we were kids. I never got to beat it. But I just loved kind of the exploration, looking for heart pieces, going through the dungeons. So I thought, slam dunk, I need to beat that game. But the more I started working on this list, I thought, how about the Zelda game I'm playing right now? Zelda 2 Adventure of Link. Talk about a game that just sucks, that I am so captivated by. Growing up, I always said this is the worst Zelda game. It's not even really a Zelda game. They tried too hard to be too different. And a lot of people that I grew up knowing that played Zelda kind of said the same thing. They weren't crazy about it. They didn't like the change of pace. They didn't like the new mechanics in it. And I think that's kind of added maybe to the mystique, or like the mystery of it. I keep wanting to find out what's in the next area, But I mean, the gameplay is grueling, it's unforgiving. When you die, you have to restart from the very beginning. Not that you lose all your progress, just that you lose where you're at. So right now where I'm at, I'm up in Death Mountain. And when I die, I have to restart all the way. I think it's at the Northern Palace is what they call it. But there's also an experience system, which I think this might be the only Zelda game with an experience system and leveling up like that, like a traditional kind of RPG. And when you die and get a game over, you lose all the progress you're making towards the next level. Now, you will most likely get it back as you play throughout, getting back to where you were. But it stinks. Like, there's just certain aspects of that game that are so punishing. And I feel like I don't play hard games very often, because I don't necessarily look for like, oh, this game's got to put hair on my chest. So this is really one of the first times I'm putting myself out there and trying to beat a game that is just obnoxiously hard. I wish there was an item, I think like for Aurora's Wind in N64 or Ocarina of Time, that would let you kind of put it here and you could just warp back there. I don't know if Link's Adventure has that, but if it did, that would be a lifesaver. I've almost said that I'm probably not going to beat it without using save states, so I was playing it on, was it emulator or the Retron? I can't remember. I was playing on something that allowed save states, and I was making progress on it, but now I'm playing the Classic Edition on the Game Boy Advance, and I've made it further in that edition than I did on the base NES. I don't know if there's any changes or if it's just a straight up port, but either way, I think if we're going for real, like, bucket list, Link's Adventure is probably a game I would like to have under my belt and say that I beat, just because it's so different compared to the rest of the Zelda games. It's still got that fun exploration, but man, the game is cryptic and unforgivingly hard. So I think it would be a great challenge to defeat, I guess. Moving on to number 2. Not that these are in any particular order, just this is the second game we're talking about. And that is Dark Cloud 2. This game, maybe more than any of the games on this list, is a game I want to beat. And talk about hard and unforgiving. This game is just that. I mean, maybe if you're an expert at the game, you don't have trouble with it, but it's got a mix of kind of resource management because, your weapon repairs and your weapon's integrity and healing items are not extremely plentiful. They either cost a lot of money or they're kind of random throughout chests and breakable rocks and such. I find that the town building aspect of this game is way harder. Like in Dark Cloud 1, I would only need a guide to get the 100%. I wouldn't need the guide to actually get through the levels. In this game, I pretty much had to have a guide open at all times when I'm doing the actual world building because I just don't really get all of it. There's like a culture analysis aspect of it, and again, just in my opinion, from what I've played of it, it's pretty vague in a lot of the things you do, and I don't necessarily like that level of vagueness to it. Now, again, the switching characters has been dumbed down. From the first one, you switch between, I think, 5 characters, and the second one, it's just the 2. Now, you always have like a third ally on the team, but you really just use them for abilities. You don't play as them. So that means you die a lot often, or a lot more frequently. How about that? Because in the other game, you could switch between the 5 characters until either the main one died, I think, or all 5 of them died. Either one. In this one, you just get the 2 characters. Either of them can die, but when they both die, that is game over. And when you get a game over, you lose all your progress. So if you forgot to save in between floors, you lose all your progress. I did that one time. I beat like 3 levels without saving, and I was so mad. Like, it's taking me forever to get through the Rainbow Butterfly Forest. I finally beat that, and now I'm into the... what is it called? I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like the valley. And I've almost beat that. I've beat a lot of the dungeon for it, which is really hard. But the town building, I'm going to have to get a guide pulled up and do it that way. I've heard a lot of people say they like Dark Cloud 1 better than Dark Cloud 2. There are things I like about Dark Cloud 2 a little better. I think it's a little brighter, a little more colorful. I like the camera aspect of building your inventions. I like that it feels like there's more people to interact with throughout the main town. So there are a lot of things I like about it. And one of the reasons that keeps drawing me in, if this was like a dime a dozen RPG, I would have already given up on Dark Cloud 2. But there's just not a whole lot like it. And I highly, highly, highly recommend anybody, if they have anything even close to Dark Cloud 2, to leave it in the comments. I know Actraiser 1, I think, is similar with the god building aspect of it, and then the combat. So you get almost the god mode where you get to build the town and interact with the characters, and then you have kind of the randomly generated dungeons. And I just don't know another game like that. I think the closest you could get are games like the Stardew Valley and the Minecraft aspect games, where you get to farm and interact with villagers, but then there's also dungeons and mining. Those are about the closest I can think of, but none of them really scratch the itch for me quite like Dark Cloud does. And that's really something I'm looking for, where it's built on kind of relationships and side quests and missions and items to find and dungeons to explore. And then there's also a combat system and leveling up your weapons and whatnot that keeps you really engaged through the game past just running through a town. So I think there are games that are similar to Dark Cloud 2, but none of them do it quite as well, in my opinion. But I've also haven't played a lot like it, so feel free to recommend any game like that down below. Next up is Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. For the most part. I've beat 4, I've beat 5. I don't know if I really care to finish 6. I don't crap on 6 like a lot of people do. Though Wesker's Son side quest, or the story mode with Wesker's Son, the camera is the closest I've got to getting motion sick in a video game. But the rest of the campaigns are pretty fun. Leon's campaign's pretty fun. Chris's campaign's really fun. So I don't hate on that game as much as everybody else. I just don't know if I have a huge desire to finish it outside of maybe getting achievements for it. But 1, 2, and 3, I'm not really a survival horror player. These games do have a special place in my heart because my dad played them a lot. So as a kid, I got to watch them and get terrified of them, but I knew a lot of the lore. I remember looking up on like Game FAQ and just reading the timeline for Resident Evil and like really wanting to know how everything came to be in Raccoon City and the outskirts and the rest of the world. That was one of the first instances of me being completely captivated by the lore of a game. And for that, I will always appreciate it. And as an adult, or really more in my teenage years, my mom, this is the first rental I can remember in my teenage years. Like, I did rent a good bit of stuff as a kid, and my parents rented stuff for us, but I walked into Movie Gallery at the time, if anyone remembers that. I know Blockbuster is the one everybody talks about, but we had a Movie Gallery here, and I rented Resident Evil 4 because I was like, oh, my dad played these when I was a kid. I'm going to get this. And, Leon got his head hacked off, like, immediately. And I was like, nope, that's enough for me. Returned it, didn't play it again for a while. Maybe till I got it. I had that on GameCube, I think. Maybe PS2 or something like that. It took me a while to go back and play it again after watching Leon get just decapitated. Finally, I owned it at some point, but who doesn't, am I right? And I beat that game. It's a bit more action-oriented than survival horror, and I think that's what let me beat it. I've gone back and I've played Resident Evil 1 and 0 and 2 and 3 a little bit. I couldn't do 3 because of Nemesis. I'm like, forget this game. But 1, 2, and 0, I do have a kind of a soft spot as far as survival horror goes. And I would like to eventually beat those games. Jessica and I have plans where I do Chris's story, she does Jill's story, and then, we do the same thing for Leon and Claire, and then maybe we do like a pass and play for Resident Evil 0 or something like that. I'm not really sure. But we do have plans to kind of, since there's two sides of each story, I beat one, she beats the other, and we kind of compare notes. So I do think that will be a game I eventually beat. Maybe the most likely out of all these to be beat, because I think I can actually do it. It's terrifying. I'm playing 2, the remake, on the Xbox One. And slowly but surely, I hate running out of bullets and having to go explore in dark alleyways with no bullets, or, like the dark corridors. It's not really my cup of tea as far as video games go, but I'm trying to get through it. And then we have 3, the remake, on PS4. So, and we got the HD remakes of 1 and 0 on PC. So I think eventually, over time, we'll probably beat all of them. Again, probably faster than we'll beat the other 2 games mentioned. But for now, we'll get around to them, I guess. Lastly, the last game I'm going to talk about today, going to keep it at 4, cover a nice range of genres and consoles and whatnot. So the 4th one is going to be Super Mario Sunshine. I debated doing a separate video for this because I don't know if I'll ever beat Sunshine. I just don't know if I care enough, but it feels weird being a Super Mario 3D platforming fan, I guess. I almost put Super Mario Galaxy 2 on this list, but I feel like Super Mario Sunshine is the better entry into this, because Super Mario Galaxy 2 I will definitely beat. I come and go in moods. So when I was in a mood to play Galaxy 2, I beat like half of it in 2 sittings. Like, I love that game. At first, I was a little skeptical of the way that they did the map and everything like that. But the more I've played it, the more I think, it rivals Galaxy 1 just as well. I mean, it's a great game. Sunshine, on the other hand, is not what I would consider a great game. It's what I would consider a love it or hate it game. So if you love it, you probably think it's a masterpiece. You probably think it's close to 10 out of 10. I always say that a lot of Let's Players that I grew up watching have an affinity for Sunshine. Whether you're talking about, like the Versus guys, Jepsen and Tyler, whether you're talking about Chugga Conroy, or just any of those old school Let's Players, they all had an affinity for Sunshine. They all thought it was the greatest game ever. I mean, when we were all getting into Let's Plays, the Wii had probably just come out, or the GameCube still might even have been out at the time. You're talking early 2000. No, okay, the Wii definitely would have been out. Or late 2000s, early 2010s. Yeah, the Wii was for sure out at that point. And I think a lot of people are just popping Sunshine in their Wii and recording it that way. And as a result, I have seen Sunshine beat like 50 times. And I even had an affinity for it as a kid. I still remember the Christmas that I unboxed the GameCube, got Sunshine, loved it at the time. I don't know if it's because me and my brother were really young when we got it, but I don't think we could ever like keep it, because I remember in my teenage years later on down the road buying Sunshine from whatever it was at the time, EB Games or Rhino Games or whatever, and just being blown away by it. As an adult, I've been like, oh, I can't wait to play Sunshine. And every time I've started Sunshine, which is about 3 or 4 times now, I just cannot get far into it at all, man. Like, it's the FLUDD controls. They just make me feel like a moron, which you could argue, oh, hey, dude, maybe you're a moron if you can't figure it out, which is fair. You're probably right. But it's just so disheartening, I guess. Not that Mario 64 has better controls. I think Super Mario 64's controls are pretty terrible too in their own right. I don't know if it's just because I grew up playing the snot out of Super Mario 64. Because I see the flaws in Super Mario 64 too. I think it wasn't until Galaxy came out that they just nailed it out of the park. Galaxy for me is about as close to a perfect game as a game can be. So Sunshine, I think, leaves a lot to be desired. Now, it rivals Galaxy and even modern day games and platformers in its level design. I think the levels are bright and colorful, which also feeds into my next point. Its use of color, set on tropical islands. I think if there was a game to just turn on and let the background music and environment kind of engulf you without actually like sitting down and playing the game and getting frustrated with it, Sunshine might be my number one pick of just plugging my GameCube or my Wii up to my TV right now and just leaving it on in the background. Because it's a wonder to look at. It really is. I love the atmospheric aspects about that game. It's one of the reasons I keep trying to go back to it. I just love exploring the little lands and finding the blue coins and the stars and just letting the music play and interacting with the characters inside the worlds. All of that rivals Mario Odyssey, A Hat in Time, Mario Galaxy, and some of my other favorite platformers. It's just, I just stop having fun when I actually start trying to beat the game. It stops being fun for me, and that is kind of a get good thing. And for that's why it's on this bucket list of games I would like to get good at. I just don't know if I have the patience to, quote unquote, get good at it, So, will I beat it? Maybe, because we might do a stream of it until one of us figures it out or something like that. But that's my bucket list of games off the top of my head. There are plenty of games where I have stop playing them just because I've lost interest or something new comes out, but not because they were so frustrating I had to put the controller down. So that I wanted to focus more on games that have made me lose my cool, made me rage quit. Games I just cannot see myself beating. Now, again, I'm thinking about doing a bucket list RPG because RPGs can never hold my attention. So that would be an interesting forum, if you will, to talk about RPG games that I've played, ones that I've liked, and just either because they're so difficult or so massive in scope, I haven't got around to beating them. We could talk about Xenoblade, we could talk about some Final Fantasy games, just these games, Dark Cloud even, of games for one reason or another have just off-put me. Maybe it was too boring, I couldn't stay interested in it. Maybe the combat was too difficult or the save processing just wasn't sufficient. I don't know. I think that would be interesting to talk about because RPGs as a genre, I'm always so excited to pop one in. and then they just lose my interest over time. So I'm thinking about doing a separate one dedicated exclusively to RPG. So I wanted to have a nice variety. You know, we talked about an adventure game, survival horror game, platforming game, and kind of an RPG. Dark Cloud's a lot of different things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the diversity here. Let me know what you thought about this. Go check out Happy Console Gamer. Love his content. Love the videos he does over there. So if you like any of my videos, you'll probably enjoy his content. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, you know, be sure to let me know what your bucket list games are, of course. And like I said, we'll see you in the next one.